Question. I recognize the Leader of His Majesty's Official Opposition.
Speaker, good morning. Well, Speaker, it's a tough morning for a lot of folks in Ontario. We just learned that Honda is postponing their electrical vehicle project in Alliston. They've said this isn't going to result in job losses, but that's really a bit hard to believe given the circumstances. And just last month, they said there was going to be no change in their Canadian auto production. But here we are with production stalled for at least 2 years, Speaker. So my question to the Premier is, what is the Premier going to do to make sure that Honda stays true to their word and prevents any job losses?
Response, the member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. In the face of global economic uncertainty, our government has been clear. We will do whatever it takes to protect Ontario's world-class workers, businesses, and industries. We are in close contact with Honda, who has reaffirmed their commitment to their operations and planned expansion here in Ontario. They have assured us that their announcement will have no impact on their current employment levels and their production at their manufacturing plant in Alliston. Ontario's auto sector has been revitalized over the last 4 years with $46 billion in new jobs and new investment. We are going to fight every single day to protect the progress that we have made in our auto sector and right across our province.
Supplementary, the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
I appreciate the parliamentary assistance response. I'd like to hear from the Premier, maybe the Deputy Premier, I don't know, maybe the Minister of Finance. You just can't take a company at their word, right? Not in a situation like this. This was a company that also said there would be no change in production, and yet here we are. The best way for us to protect against a chaotic U.S. president and tariffs is to strengthen our own domestic market, Speaker. Honda says it's not about the trade war, but it's about the slowdown in the EV market. So let's try something, right? The government could take a bit of responsibility here. They made it more and more difficult for Ontarians to switch to EVs. They eliminated rebates. They removed requirements for buildings to have chargers. Their bill that they tabled just yesterday gets rid of green standards for new buildings.
Question.
So to the Premier, will the Premier bring back EV rebates and commit to accessible charging infrastructure?
I recognize the member for Bay of Quinte.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And I'm glad that the member wants to talk about EVs. Let's talk about the report that came out in 2019, that globally companies were going to spend $300 billion on the EV supply chain. Zero of those dollars were slated to come to Ontario or to Canada. This government sprang into action. We brought in $46 billion of EV investment, securing hundreds of thousands of jobs and creating tens of thousands of new jobs in the automotive sector. We have saved that sector. We have continued to invest in it, and we believe that the future for the Ontario vehicle production sector is going to be bright. We're going to continue to bring in high-quality investments that lead to good-paying jobs, making great products right here in Ontario. That's how you protect Ontario.
Supplementary. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
I mean, you can keep praying for something to come, but look, the reality is today, Honda is stopping production. Like this is all halted. I don't know if you got the memo, but look, it was Ontarians, Ontario taxpayers that invested $2.5 billion into this EV project so we could create good jobs in the sector. Honda promised 1,000 more jobs for people in Alliston. Ontarians also invested in Brampton, in Windsor, in Oakville, where production has also stalled and put jobs at risk. The Premier likes to talk about attracting investment to Ontario with tax breaks and subsidies, but when those companies break their promise to workers and to communities, he just throws up his hands in the air. The Premier allowed the market to dry up with his reckless decisions. Back to the Premier, if you won't bring them back, what is the Premier prepared to do to shore up the EV sector?
The member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you very much. And as I've already stated, we continue to work with Honda, who has reaffirmed their commitment not only to this new investment, but also to the current production and the current employees at their plant in Alliston. And just to correct the member opposite, no funds have flowed yet from the Ontario government or the federal government to support this project. We very much look forward to this investment continuing, that will continue to bring in good jobs, keep people employed, putting food on their table and paying their bills, because that's what matters to the people of Ontario. And they know that this government will always stand up and and prioritize their needs and their livelihoods. We are going to protect Ontario. That's what we were elected to do, and that is exactly what we are going to deliver for the people of Ontario.
Supplementary, the Leader of the Opposition.
I gotta say, Speaker, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone here. You know, this government hasn't woken up to the reality of what we are facing today. Now, I want to be clear. And I want to go back to the Premier on this question. When you made these deals with these companies, we said, where are the strings that are attached? We warned you if there were no strings attached, this was what was going to happen. Right? You need to attach some strings to the investments if you're going to take $2.5 billion of Ontarians' hard-earned taxpayer dollars and invest it. It is not your money. There needed to be strings attached. People are worried, and all we get from this government over and over again are platitudes. So I want to go back to the Premier again. You said this morning that he would hold these companies accountable. What is the Premier's plan to do that?
Member for the Bay of Quinte.
Well, thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Speaker, for recognizing me. You know, we know that under the previous Liberal government that was supported by the NDP, absolutely nothing was going to happen in the EV sector. We were going to sit back and let the future of automobile manufacturing pass us by. This government said not a chance. We sprang into action, securing $46 billion in EV investment, shoring up those 100,000 jobs, and creating tens of thousands of more jobs. Look what we've done in life sciences, $6 billion of investment, generated over 4,800 jobs, and in phase 2 we're looking to bring in 13,000 more jobs. We've also brought in tens of billions of dollars in tech investments in ridings all over the province, including Hitachi Rail in your riding, as you heckle me right now, including building Ottawa into the #1 tech hub with the highest concentration of tech jobs anywhere in North America. And Toronto has brought in more tech investment over the last 5 years than any other major North American jurisdiction. We will continue.
Supplementary. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, thank you, Speaker. Well, back to the Premier, but I got news for you. You are the previous government.
Will come to order. Stop the clock. The government side will come to order. I apologize to the Leader of the Opposition. You may continue.
As I was saying, Speaker, you are the previous government, and you're the government before that too, right? And there is anxiety and uncertainty in the province of Ontario, and that is on you. We have the highest unemployment rate in the country right now. 33,000 manufacturing jobs lost in April. In April alone. That is more than half the job losses in the entire economy. What planet are you living on if you don't think we have a problem here? My question to the Premier is, how long will this government continue to wait and see more people lose their jobs without a plan?
Back to the member for the Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. You know, I had a business teacher back in college named Bill Crow, who used to say what interests the customer should fascinate you. So you want to talk about jobs? Let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about the over 1 million jobs that we have created in this economy since 2018. Let's talk about the 140,000 jobs that we created just last year. And in the first 2 months of this year, 55,000 more jobs were created in the province of Ontario because of the economic conditions that we have put in place. Not because of the work of the previous Liberal government supported by the NDP. Your credit rating was downgraded twice. Our credit rating has been upgraded twice. We are building a stronger economy that works better for everyone in Ontario, everywhere in Ontario, and we are not about to apologize for doing that.
To order.
I will say, Premier, Speaker, I would not have given that a standing ovation if I were you. The highest unemployment rate in the country. 33,000 jobs lost in April.
Will come to order.
This is on your government. Every one of those jobs that are lost is on your government. The anxiety that people are feeling right now, that is on your government, right? We have been asking every single day since this House returned about those job losses. Every single day, this government has had no real answer, no plan at all. We warned you over and over again to attach strings to those investments, those Ontario dollars that were attached to companies like Honda, and you shrugged it off. You trust them implicitly. Well, you know what? People of Ontario are tired of your platitudes. They need action. Will the Premier actually take action and be accountable? What is the Premier's plan, I ask again, to address these job losses?
The member from Bay of Quinte.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Leader of the Opposition for the question. Perhaps I didn't project enough last time. Maybe you didn't hear me. The funds have not flowed. So you're talking about strings on investment that has not flowed yet. This is the problem with having scripted questions, I suppose. But back onto the subject matter. We have sprung into action immediately. We put forward $11 billion in supports to keep businesses operating, to keep them profitable, and to keep people employed. We put over $1.3 billion more dollars for the Manufacturers Made in Ontario tax credit. We put forward $1 billion through the Skills Development Fund to retrain hundreds of thousands of new workers. We put forward tens of millions of dollars for trade-impacted communities. You know, we asked the people of Ontario an important question a few months ago. Who do you want to guide you through this economic crisis? And they were unequivocal that it was this party and this Premier that was going to deliver for this province, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
Stop the clock. The government side will come to order, or I will start naming people. I apologize. Start the clock. I recognize the Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is for the Premier. But before I get started, the folks from Dresden are down in the media studio right now. And I'm sure if the Premier or the Deputy Premier could happen on downstairs, they would like an explanation as to why this government turned its back on them and their MPP. So my question is for the Premier. Does the Premier think that spending more than $1 billion every year on private nursing agencies is the right way to spend our healthcare dollars?
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. Of course, as we continue to invest in our healthcare system, we are going to make sure that those investments are targeted. Things like ensuring through the colleges and universities to expand a learn and stay program that allows more nurses to actually train and ultimately practice in the province of Ontario. We've had 100,000 nurses. We've licensed over 100,000 nurses since 2018. 30,000 who are currently in our post-secondary institutions. Those are the impacts that we are making as we expand the opportunities for nurses, for other allied health professionals. We will see that those opportunities to live, earn, and practice in the province of Ontario expand under the Ford government. Thank you.
Back to the Leader of the third party.
The government's known about this problem for about 3 years, and they've done nothing about it. Well, Quebec actually has moved to sanction some of those agencies that weren't good operators. This government's done nothing about that. And the only thing they have right now is a weak measure in Bill 11 that asks them to report to the minister. So these agencies have increased dramatically. Hospitals have only increased their employment by about 6%. These agencies have almost doubled. And all this government has is a weak send us a note. Right? No action, no enforcement, no penalties, no real action. So I guess the question isn't any different, because I hear the answer in your response, is does the government think that spending all this money, more than $1 billion every year, on private nursing agencies, shareholder-driven corporations, is the right way to spend our healthcare dollars?
Back to the Minister of Health.
So if memory serves me correct, the member opposite actually was the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health under the previous Liberal administration and would know full well that temporary staffing agencies have been in operation in the province of Ontario for decades. They are a very important tool to make sure that we have qualified clinicians working in our hospitals, in our long-term care homes, in our community care systems. So is the member opposite suggesting that we should cut out that pathway and that opportunity for hospitals and long-term care homes to actually regulate when they need additional staff and bring them in when appropriate? There's no doubt that this is an important tool for our healthcare professionals, and I'm frankly shocked that a previous parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health needs that explained to him.
Supplementary, the Leader of the Third Party.
I knew I had something to look forward to this morning, getting schooled by the Minister of Health. The reality is, these agencies are a reality. The problem is that you basically just let them run amok. You're spending more than $1 billion. I guess the minister's answer to that is spending $1 billion. Well, that's appropriate. We don't think it's appropriate. Right? We should be investing in Ontario's hospitals, in our people. That's what we should be doing here. And every year, you're sending $1 billion to shareholder-driven private corporations, and that's not making our healthcare system any better. Guess my question is, will we see anything in the budget to actually put an end to this, to reverse the trend, and make sure that we have some sort of balance or normalcy in how these agencies are used?
Minister of Health.
As you know, we have legislation on the books currently that we are debating that is actually going to give us more additional data to ensure that the appropriate use of temporary staffing agencies is happening. But, Speaker, let's talk about what we expect to see in Thursday's budget. What we expect to see is more investments in healthcare. We have $50 billion worth of capital that is going into our hospital and our healthcare system. Why? Because it was neglected for too long. Whether you live in Mississauga, whether you live in Windsor, whether you live in Sault Ste. Marie or Ottawa, or indeed Niagara South, you are seeing investments that our government is making to ensure that our world-class primary care providers and allied health professionals have the appropriate services and equipment and capital that they need to do the job in Ontario. Thank you.
Question, the Leader of the Third Party.
So the minister would know that the problem is not in building hospitals. It's actually what happens inside them. And waitlists are longer. We're using private nursing agencies. And now, while the Premier sends billions of dollars every year to private, share-driven corporations, Ontarians are being asked every day to use their credit card instead of their OHIP card to get the basic services that they need. So I guess my question back to the minister is, in this budget, will there be measures to stop the trend of more and more people every day being asked to use their credit card instead of their OHIP card?
Minister of Health.
As we expand access across Ontario, we will absolutely have more good news to share on Thursday. But, just a question, I guess. Bonnie Crombie's still your leader, right? So when she was in the leadership, she was actually talking, Speaker, about how the Liberal government of the day was spending too much money on health care. Quite the opposite under Premier Ford. We have a government who is investing in its people, investing in its capital, and ensuring that the people of Ontario continue to have world-class health care, unlike the previous Liberal government who decided that they had been spending too much money when we obviously have seen gaps in the system that we are now repairing and replacing.
Supplementary, Leader of the Third Party.
Not that the minister is just okay with people having to use their credit card. Doesn't seem to be a problem over there. I didn't hear anything about that in the response. And the reality is that every day people are being asked to do that. And the Premier loves to say that. You only have to use your WIP card, not your credit card. Anyway, and just like everything else the Premier says, a lot of empty words. So in Ottawa, if you need an MRI, the doctor, the first thing out of their mouth is, you got two choices. You can pay $100 across the river, or you can wait in line for 3 or 4 months. And this happens with cataracts, It happens with appointments for optometrists. Every day, people are being asked for their credit card to get an earlier appointment. Now, I don't think that that's the right thing to do, that people are asked to spend their own hard-earned money while they send you money to get basic health care services. So my question again is, are you going to stop this practice, do something about it, or are you just going to throw back what you gave me in the last response?
Minister of Health.
No, we had wait lists that were out of control when our government came in. And because the member opposite highlighted cataracts, I'm going to talk about cataracts. We had wait time cataract waits that were out of control. What did we do?
Don Valley East.
We invested in cataract community centres in Windsor, in Kitchener-Waterloo, in Ottawa. Right. And as a result, I have spoken to a mother who received her cataract surgery in a community surgical diagnostic centre, and guess what? She talked to me about how she could drive again, how she could read to her grandchild again, how she could volunteer back in her community. The member opposite in opposition does not believe that there is a role for community diagnostic and surgical centres in the province. I diametrically oppose that because I've seen what the impact is to people in Ontario.
Supplementary.
What I asked the minister was, I want people to get care. We all want people to get care. They just shouldn't have to use their credit card. And they're having to do that more and more. In the case in Ottawa, I know of a constituent went into needed cataract surgery, not urgent. Here's what the optometrist said to her. You can go to these private clinics and get it done soon, even though it wasn't a rush. But you don't want to be on the wait list. And to be fair, the wait list is not that bad for cataracts. So the problem I have, and you don't seem to understand because you're out of touch over there, is people are being asked to spend their hard-earned money while they're sending you tax dollars for something they can reasonably expect to get. Basic health care, primary care. It's ridiculous. The minister doesn't get it. So are they actually going to do something about this practice, or is it just going to be the Wild West in Ontario for health care, and people can ask for a credit card anytime they like?
Back to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm pleased that the member opposite actually highlighted the fact that because of our investments in community cataract surgeries, we were actually able to decrease the wait list for cataract surgeries. And I hope when we make expansions in other community diagnostic and surgical centres, like for orthopedics, that the member opposite will understand that when you expand community and surgical centres across Ontario, you will actually see a corresponding decrease in wait times. It happened in cataracts, and it will happen in a number of other surgeries because we see the need. People want that convenience in their community, and they have a government under Premier Ford that will give it to them. Thank you.
Recognize the member for University of Rosedale.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Education. In 2024, the Minister of Education brought in Deloitte to investigate the Toronto Catholic District School Board to find efficiencies, and the report is now complete. The Toronto Catholic District School Board has to submit its school budget by June and is asked to see the Deloitte report numerous times so that they can look at the recommendations. Yet, the government refuses to give it to them. Instead, they're launching another investigation paid for by taxpayers into the school board's financial position. Minister, my question is simple. Before you launch a new investigation, can you release the first report by Deloitte to the Toronto Catholic District School Board?
Minister of Education.
I thank the member for the question, Madam Speaker. As a matter of fact, I've been speaking with the Toronto Catholic District School Board, and they are actually very anxious and encouraged to work with the investigators in the weeks ahead. So we're going to continue to do that. We'll have the basis of the initial report that we've already done. As you know, they have a significant deficit of over, I believe it's over $70 million in that. And by the end of the month, not only will we have the benefit of the investigators' report, that'll be based on some of the work that was already done by the team that had already gone in there. So the member will have to wait till the end of the month. But as I said, we're working very closely with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. They're excited at the opportunity to work with us, and I'm encouraged by their openness to get to the bottom of their overspending.
Back to the member for supplementary.
I think I'd be excited to see the first report.
That's right. That's right.
It's not that the Toronto Catholic District School Board that has already been audited. The Toronto District School Board has also been audited by Deloitte and the Auditor General. And these audits have found time and time again that there's no fat left to cut in our school boards. They're cutting into muscle. If Ontario wants to see improvements in schools, the repair of school buildings, pools to remain open, and smaller class sizes, the only solution, the only long-term solution, is to secure more provincial investment. My question is to the minister: can this government commit to properly funding our schools so that our kids can succeed in the classroom?
I recognize the Minister of Education.
Well, Madam Speaker, therein lies the difference between the opposition and this government. So every single year that we have been in office, we have increased funding for classroom education across the province of Ontario. We're continuing to do that. Now, the boards that she's talking about have significant multi-year deficits. We have sent an investigator in to ascertain why these deficits continue. We expected to get multi-year recovery plans from these two boards. They did not provide us with that in a satisfactory fashion. And we are sending an investigation team to tell us whether we should assume greater responsibility, whether the ministry should assume responsibility. But as I've said in this House time and time again, and I'm not going to stray from this, Madam Speaker, I expect the money that we send for classroom education to be spent on classroom education, full stop. I'm not here to fund programs that aren't part of classroom education. What I want is the teachers to have all the resources that they need to properly educate our kids for the jobs of tomorrow. And if teachers don't have those resources, then we will not graduate the best students that we can. So I'll make sure the teachers get the resources and that boards don't stand in the way, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Premier. The youth unemployment rate in Ontario has reached a staggering 15.2%. This summer alone, thousands of students are on their summer break and are already feeling the wrath of this government's lack of support for young people living in Ontario. There's no income, no productivity, no hope, no future, and poverty continues to be an ugly reality for our young people. My question to the Premier: will the Premier commit to taking this youth unemployment crisis seriously? And can he assure the young people of Ontario that Thursday's budget will include meaningful investments to support them?
I recognize the Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, and I appreciate the member opposite and her passion for youth across the province of Ontario. Yes, the Premier already actually announced at Skills Ontario, one of the largest gatherings of youth across Ontario and the largest skilled trades fair in this country, he committed another $1 billion in the Skills Development Fund. Wow. Speaker, in that member's own riding, and I encourage her to join me next time, we visited a women's work, Natasha Ferguson, empowering a next generation of women entering apprenticeships. Speaker, and what has the net result of programs like that been? A 30% increase in women registration in apprenticeships in Ontario. Wow. That's going to support building a stronger province, Speaker, and we're going to get the job done under Premier Ford's leadership.
Supplementary, the member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
And so what this government failed to realize is that while their investment and while they're planning, the youth of Ontario is suffering now. Where is the bailout for the young people of Ontario now? This government continue to sound like a broken record for years to come, and the people of Ontario are tired of all the broken promises. Through you, Madam Speaker, what is this government going to do to take Ontario from one of the highest youth unemployment rates now in the country to the lowest? And why did last year's budgets fail to deliver on that goal? That is why we are here today.
Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, and you saw right there a fundamental difference. The member opposite asked for a bailout for youth. There is no youth I'm talking to that are asking for a bailout. They want meaningful skills to achieve a job. They want better skills training. Right. Speaker, they want better school boards and schools that deliver them for their priority, Speaker. That's what the Minister of
Apologize to the Minister. Would the member for Beaches East York please come to order? Back to the Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. They want skills training. They're going to get that in our K-12 schools. They want better colleges and universities thanks to the largest investment in post-secondary education under that minister. They want skills development fund that's employer-driven to match them to jobs of tomorrow. Speaker, we'll continue making those investments to support our next generation. We've seen a historic increase in apprenticeships because we're actually building again in this great province. Thank you, Speaker.
The member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Transportation. For years, the Liberals talked about transit, but they never built it. They let our roads, bridges, and transit system fall behind while Ontario kept growing. But our government is building, Madam Speaker. We are building projects like the Ontario Line, which will cut congestion and make it easier to get across the GTA. We are building the Eglinton West Extension to give people faster, more reliable commutes. We are building Yonge North Subway Extension to connect more communities to rapid transit. Speaker, these projects will cut gridlock and connect people's jobs. They will help businesses grow and keep our economy growing and strong. Speaker, can the Minister share more about how these projects will support Ontario's growing population?
I recognize the member for Brampton West.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the member for that great question. For 15 years, the Liberals did nothing but make empty promises on public transit. Under this Premier's leadership, we're not just talking, Speaker, we're building. Speaker, the Ontario Line will cut congestion and connect major destinations across the GTA, providing relief to Line 1 and Line 2. The Eglinton West Extension will take thousands of commuters off overcrowded buses onto a new rapid transit line, seamlessly linking the GO Transit and the TTC. And the Yonge North Subway Extension, 8 kilometres of rapid transit, will connect Vaughan, Richmond Hill and Markham to our broader transit network. These projects aren't just about getting people from point A to point B. They're about creating jobs, reducing commute times, building the infrastructure Ontario needs to thrive. And Speaker, the Liberals had 15 years to act and did nothing. Our government is building for today and for generations to come. Thank you, Speaker.
Back to the member for supplementary.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Our government knows that building transit is about more than just moving people. It is about creating jobs, supporting businesses, and building strong communities. Projects like the Ontario Line will unlock new housing and commercial space, helping more families find a place to live close to work. The Hazel McKillian LRT will connect businesses in Brampton and Mississauga, bringing more customers to local shops and restaurants. The Scarborough Subway Extension will put tens of thousands of jobs within easy reach of public transit, making our economy stronger. Speaker, can the parliamentary assistant share more about how this project will support jobs, local businesses and economic growth for the long term?
Back to the member for Brampton East.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you again to the member from Mississauga, Erin Mills. He's absolutely right, Speaker. Our government understands that investing in public transit isn't just about moving people. It's about fueling economic growth and creating economic opportunity. The Ontario Line will open up new corridors for housing and commercial development, attracting businesses and bringing jobs closer to where people live. The Hazel McKillian LRT will connect Brampton and Mississauga, driving foot traffic to local businesses and revitalizing our downtown cores. And the subway extension in Scarborough will be bringing 34,000 jobs within walking distance of public transit, and it'll be a game changer for workers and businesses alike. Speaker, while the NDP and the Liberals voted against these vital projects, Ontarians voted for progress, and that's why they chose our government to deliver these historic investments. Speaker, we're committed to building the infrastructure in Ontario, and we're going to get it done for the people of Ontario. Thank you.
the member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Thank you, Speaker. While giving billions of dollars away to employers, WSIB President Jeffrey Lang stated, "We are in the strongest financial position in our history, and yet management has forced WSIB workers into a strike position and is demanding concessions." Will the Minister of Labour instruct WSIB management to stop their anti-worker tactics, get back to the bargaining table, and negotiate a fair deal for WSIB workers?
I recognize the Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Speaker, and I appreciate the question from the member opposite. I want to first off start by thanking the workers at WSIB. 97% of claims, Speaker, receive a decision in 10 days or less. 88% of workers have returned to work within the 3-month window, which is key to giving people a return to work dignity of a job, Speaker. It's the best performance in a decade. We know, Speaker, that the best deals are done at the table, and that's based off of a system of neutrality, where good faith negotiations are underscored by a shared commitment to outcomes. As I said in the past in this place, 98% of deals are done at the table. I'm pleased to say that the WSIB and union are at the table with the support of the Ontario Labour Relations Board, and I look forward to them landing a deal. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
I believe they are not at the table. The government claims to have workers' backs, yet they stand by as management takes big raises and bonuses while demanding concessions from WSIB's frontline workers. The WSIB needs to hire more staff to make workloads manageable. Workers need wages and benefits that match their responsibilities and keep up with the rising cost of living. Will the Minister of Labour demand that the WSIB use their so-called surplus to support fair wages and working conditions and get back to the bargaining table with the Ontario Compensation Employees Union?
Back to the Minister of Labour for a response.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, real progress is made at the table, and both sides are in mediation supported by the Ontario Labour Relations Board. That's a fact, Speaker. Since 2023, WSIB has hired 100 new staff. Their case management team has increased by 5%. Onboarding program and retention is 22 weeks, Speaker, which really helps with the retention piece, Speaker, and they're actually at the table today, Speaker. So that's a key fact, and the members opposite should be underscoring the importance of landing a deal at the table. They are at the table, and not the sort of theatre we're seeing. It's completely unhelpful, Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Canada-Carleton.
Thank you, Speaker. In 2017, unemployment in Ontario was 5.8%. After 6 years of this Conservative government, in 2024, it was 6.8%. And now, in 2025, it is 7.8%. Ontario is tied with Nunavut for having the second highest unemployment rate in Canada. Young people that would love to be employed in Ontario are beginning to look elsewhere because employment opportunities are elsewhere. We have young people who can't afford a house, can't get health care, can't find a job, and yet we expect them to build the Ontario of tomorrow. My question to the Premier is, why is he comfortable failing Ontario's young people?
Recognize the Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we, under the leadership of this Premier, we took the mandate to the people just a few months ago about who they trust to navigate these tariffs, Speaker, that are having a devastating impact on the world economy, Speaker. We've then come back to invest in tools and machinery to continue supporting our manufacturing sector, invested $1 billion in the Skills Development Fund, which has led to a record number of youth signed up in apprenticeships today, Speaker, which is a far cry from the 300,000 manufacturing jobs we lost under their watch, Speaker, where we created an economy that had the highest taxes, the highest regulatory burden, where businesses were fleeing, Speaker, and where there was no hope, no opportunity in this province, Speaker. The Premier has decided to dress players, the Speaker, to actually attract investment, to get on the world stage, and we've seen a result of over $46 billion in foreign direct investment since, Speaker.
The member for Canada-Carleton.
In the past year, Quebec and Alberta have improved their employment rates, while Ontario has lost ground. Just last month alone, Alberta created 15,000 new construction jobs, while Ontario lost 33,000 construction jobs. While job numbers might have increased by 1 million, the workforce was increased by 1.3 million people. So effectively, that means that 300,000 more people are actively looking for work. That's why the unemployment rate is so high. This is not just a tariff problem. This is not just a USA problem. Time and time again, we see Ontario losing out under this government. Ontario Liberals have proposed both a small business tax cut and an income tax cut. Why is the government ignoring Ontario's workers? And
back to the Minister of Labour for response.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the facts are, under that previous government, manufacturing jobs fled. Since 2020, we've seen an increase of over 10% in manufacturing jobs in Ontario. And Speaker, nobody in the province of Ontario believes that party when they claim they'll reduce taxes. The band of merry misfits that went up to Ottawa, Speaker, that led with the carbon tax, Speaker, that had one hand in your left pocket, one hand in your right, punished Ontarians, Speaker. Misery, no growth under their record. In contrast, Speaker, we're investing in skilled trades. We've got training centres under construction all over Ontario, Speaker. We're bringing back a plan to build in Ontario subways, hospitals, Speaker, long-term care and schools in rural Ontario that they shut down, Speaker. We'll take no lessons on building a stronger economy from that party, Speaker. That's why they were reduced to third-party, no-party status. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the member for Guelph.
Good morning, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. The food and farming sector contributes $50 billion to Ontario's economy, employing over 875,000 people in this province. In order to tariff-proof Ontario and to defend our food sovereignty, we need to protect farmland. The province simply can't afford to continue losing 319 acres per day. Now, there are many concerns about the government's China-inspired special economic zones, including the fact that they could be used in agricultural areas, giving hand-picked companies the ability to pave over farmland while ignoring local and provincial planning laws. So, Speaker, will the Premier commit today to not use special economic zones in agricultural areas on farmland?
I recognize the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning. I thank my friend for the question. I know he's also passionate about our primary producers, our processors, and I think this comes from a good place. This government is proud. We have a history, and we're proud to listen to, work with, and take action on behalf of our primary processors, our producers, our farming families. Like the member said, over 871,000 people wake up every day and work for that trusted global brand of excellence that has grown in Ontario. That's 30,000 more people that are working in that sector since 2018. Our provincial planning statement represents a balanced approach to ensure a thriving, sustainable, and long-living agri-food sector while supporting growth in Ontario's industrial, residential and commercial sectors. It's that balanced approach this government is working for and informed by the very people who grow Ontario.
Supplementary, the member for Guelph.
Thank you, Speaker. Respectfully to the Minister, Ontario is losing 319 acres of farmland each and every day. 1 in 10 Ontarians are employed in the food and farming sector. We will not defend our food sovereignty and win this trade war if we don't defend those workers, if we don't defend our farmland, if we don't defend our farmers. Speaker, if there is no farmland, there is no farmers, there is no food, there is no future. That's exactly why the MPP from Haldimand Norfolk and I will be introducing legislation later today to create a food belt to defend and protect our farmland. And I want to give the Premier an opportunity, or the Minister an opportunity right now.
Question.
Will the government commit to saying yes to protecting farmland and no to special economic zones?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thanks again, Speaker. There has never been a government that has supported our primary producers and processors more. Our farming families from across the province got up and voted in the dead of winter, voted for this government for a new and clear mandate to advance all things grown in Ontario. We're advancing agriculture. Specifically, our provincial planning statement expands the use of agriculture impact assessments. That's a province-wide direction on how land is used, informing municipalities, informing our partners when changes are made and proposed. Specifically, let's look at power use. When we're looking at protecting specialty crops on lands that are protected for agriculture only and not use those for energy production. So we've listened to, we've acted, and we'll ensure that energy is supported, our farming and producing families are supported, and Ontario's land use is supported and protected to grow Ontario. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Associate Minister of Auto Theft and Bail Reform. Speaker, every day police officers across Ontario work hard to keep us safe. But the threat of car theft is a major concern, and our families are worried. Criminals are targeting vehicles and making our streets less secure. Under the Premier's leadership, our government is acting to stop this. We are investing $18 million to Preventing Auto Theft grant to support police to stop auto theft. This funding backs 21 projects focused on prevention, detection, and enforcement, giving officers the tools they need to fight crime. Together, these efforts support our police, protecting families, and make our communities safer. Speaker, can the Associate Minister share more about how these efforts are keeping our communities safer, and our criminals off the street?
I recognize the Associate Solicitor General.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member from Mississauga Lakeshore for his tireless advocacy and work. Every day, the brave men and women in our police services put their lives on line to keep our communities safe. Their dedication and courage are unmatched, and our government, supported by led by Premier Ford, will support them every step of the way. And we're supporting them with initiatives such as a Preventing Auto Thefts grant, an $18 million investment that funds 21 projects with enhanced new crime-fighting measures focused on prevention, detection, analysis, and disrupting enforcement. The OPP-led Provincial Auto Theft and Towing Team, a team that collaborates with other police services to disrupt and dismantle criminal network focused on auto theft, particularly within the towing industry. And the Major Auto Theft Prosecution Response Team, which provides dedicated legal and prosecutorial support to the OPP to prepare and prosecute complex cases. Our government will continue fighting to protect Ontario every step of the way, and we will not stop. Thank you, Speaker.
Recognize the member from Mississauga Lakeshore.
Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Associate Minister. Preventing auto theft means giving police the tools they need to protect the streets. That's why our government is taking action. Every stolen car is more than just a number. It is a threat to our community safety and major costs to families. That's why we're investing in new tools with technology and new laws to give the police the upper hand in this fight. We're standing with our law enforcement, helping them divert criminals, networks, and crack down on crime theft to protect our streets. We're making sure that criminals know that there's no place for them to hide. We're making sure that our criminals know there's no place to hide. Speaker, can the Associate Minister please share more about how these steps are helping to reduce crime in our streets?
The Associate Solicitor General.
Speaker, Ontarians deserve safer streets, and our government is delivering. We're proposing legislation through the Ministry of Transportation that, if passed, will grant police new search and seizure powers and will ban the possession of illegal keyless entry devices, fob reprogramming devices, and software, making it easier to stop criminals and thieves in their tracks. These measures will build upon past efforts such as our Joint Air Support Unit initiative, a $134 million investment to purchase 5 new police helicopters to support Greater Toronto and Ottawa regions. And we're seeing great results. In 2024 in Ontario, auto theft went down by over 17%. This year, Peel alone has seen a decline of 13%, and Brampton has seen a decline of 45% year-to-date when compared to last year. And I'm proud to tell my esteemed colleague that our government, under the leadership of Premier Ford and Solicitor General, will continue to do all we can to end auto theft and protect Ontario.
I recognize the member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Speaker, my question is for the Premier. The U.S. tariffs have been bad news for Ontario businesses and truckers, but this government has made things even worse for them. Speaker, commercial trucks require an IRP plate to cross the U.S. and provincial borders. But this government has made unwanted changes to the IRP program in March, turning renewals into a complete slog. A renewal that used to take days to complete now takes months. Thousands of trucks are parked. Truckers have lost work, and Ontario businesses have lost tens of thousands of dollars and counting. They call it modernization. We call it a mess. Why did this government make these disastrous changes to the IRP program, and what are they doing to fix it?
Recognize the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. I find this question ironic coming from the opposition. This is a government that has supported truckers and people in that industry from day one. We have supported them by fighting against the federal carbon tax. We've supported them by eliminating driver's license fee renewals, and we've supported them by the gas tax cut. Where was the opposition when we put forward these proposals and supported it in the House? You voted against these measures to help truckers every single time. Having said that, Speaker, we recognize that truck drivers and carriers have faced challenges in processing applications and processing with the new IRP plates. That's why our government is taking real, practical steps to improve service delivery and reduce delays. We've already implemented several key measures to support carriers. We've launched a dedicated IRP contact centre to handle inquiries, and I'll have more to say in the supplementary.
That's the member for Humber River, Black Creek.
It's failed truckers, and they're calling you in numbers. Businesses are calling this government in numbers, and they know it. Speaker, you can add this IRP mess to the growing list of bad mistakes this government has made. To deal with their backlog, they've extended the renewal deadline to the end of next month. But guess what? There are 10,000 plates waiting for renewal right now, and the number grows daily. Will they admit that this is yet another one of their mistakes and explain how they can possibly renew all these plates by the end of next month when the situation is only getting worse by the day?
Back to the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement.
And, thank you, Speaker. And just following up, I did want to touch on some of the things that we are doing to help in this situation. We've onboarded additional staff to speed up backlogs and application processing. Carriers can now book appointments online, choosing the time and location that works best for them, cutting down on wait times and improving convenience. And with the support from MTO, we've extended the deadline for IRP plates between March 31st and May 30th to June 30th. Speaker, our government will continue to support truckers and put policies in place that creates an environment for economic activity to grow and truckers to do their business. Thank you, Speaker.
Recognize the member for Nepean. For Ajax.
Speaker, my question is to the Premier. Right now in Ontario, over 60,000 children are waiting for critical services through the Ontario Autism program. And I'm hearing directly from families and service providers that many are waiting 2 to 4 years or even more just to access basic supports. These are critical therapies during the most crucial stages of a child's development, but children are aging out of the program. Will the Premier commit today to increase funding for the Ontario Autism program in Thursday's budget so that children can access the services they need without having to be on a years-long wait list?
Recognize the Minister of Children and Community and Social Services.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for the important question. Madam Speaker, I would just like to remind my honourable colleague we have been increasing support in the Ontario Autism program. When the Members' Party was in power, Madam Speaker, they provided supports to only 8,000 families across the province, and that was it. Today, more than 45,000 families are receiving multiple services and supports, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that's done because our government has prioritized families. We listen to families. We listen to service providers, our partners, those with lived experience, and listen to them and increase the program funding but to more than $720 million in comparison to the previous government with $300 million, Madam Speaker. As a result, as I said, more than 45,000 have and continue to receive supports and services.
Response?
And Madam Speaker, unlike the previous government, where the families had access to one program, today they have access to programs immediately when they sign with access to OIP, and I'll have more to say in the supplement.
Supplementary, the member for Ajax.
Thank you, Speaker. This government took a program that was starting to work for families and blew it up and put families in chaos. So since 2019, now that wait list has tripled. This government promised to deliver support to every child with autism, but frankly, the reality is different. I've heard directly from parents who've had to leave their jobs to help their children while they wait in the dark year after year with no timeline, no clarity, and no hope, Speaker. Will the Premier admit that the current funding envelope is insufficient and that he will commit today to expand the budget and improve the Ontario Autism Program so children can finally get the help when they need it?
The Minister of Children, Community and Social Services.
Let me make it very clear to all my colleagues in this House, we've said it many, many times, children and youth are maybe a portion of today's population. They're 100% of our future, and we will continue to support them. Madam Speaker, the Ontario Autism Program, the member talks about a program that was working. Let me remind the member, 75% of families had zero access to supports and services, Madam Speaker. Why? Because they weren't listening to families. They weren't listening to service providers. They weren't listening to partners. What did we do? We came in, we immediately doubled the funding of the program. We listened to families, we listened to providers. The program that we have in place today that the member doesn't agree with was developed by the autism community, Madam Speaker. It's the community that put this program together. That's why we are proud of it, Madam Speaker, because we know parents, families, and service providers know better than anybody, Madam Speaker. So we'll continue to work with families, and we'll make sure every single child and youth in this province has the opportunity and the supports to succeed and thrive, Madam Speaker.
Question. I recognize the member for Newmarket Aurora.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence and Security. Ontario's colleges and universities are a cornerstone as well as for our economy. They train the next generation of workers, innovators, and leaders. In a time of global economic uncertainty, we need to take measures to protect this vital sector. That is why our government has a plan to act. We are investing $750 million in the STEM programs. This funding will give students the skills they need to thrive in high-demand fields. It will help build the workforce of tomorrow, one that drives our economy forward. Speaker, can the minister share how these investments are making our post-secondary institutions stronger and ensuring our students have the skills to compete and succeed?
I recognize the Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence and Security.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to my colleague from Newmarket Aurora for that important question. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, our government has been continuously working to strengthen the links between post-secondary education and the evolving needs of Ontario's labour market. Because we know at our colleges and universities we are building the labour force of tomorrow, a workforce that is cutting edge, dynamic, and ready to drive our economy forward no matter what, Speaker. Which is why, as part of our plan to protect Ontario and continue growing our skilled trade workforce of tomorrow, we're investing $750 million to support STEM programs at colleges and universities across the province. Through this investment, we are equipping graduates with the skills to thrive in high-demand fields so that when they graduate, they can quickly contribute to the province's economic growth. Through active collaboration efforts between our government, post-secondary partners and industry, we are providing Ontario students access to critical programs that lead to rewarding, in-demand careers today and for decades to come.
Supplementary, the member for Newmarket Aurora.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that response. Ontario's colleges and universities are at the heart of our plan to build a skilled workforce. They train our workers, innovators, and leaders that we need to keep our economy strong. That's why our government is showing leadership and making historic investments in this sector. These investments are helping to support cutting-edge and in-demand programs. This includes AI, vehicle manufacturing, medicine, and skilled trades. These programs are building a skilled workforce that can compete globally. They are helping protect Ontario against foreign economic pressures. This will ensure that our students have the right skills for good jobs of the future.
Question.
Can the minister share how this funding will help colleges and universities prepare students for the careers of tomorrow and drive Ontario's economy forward?
Back to the Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research, Excellence and Security.
Thank you, Speaker. Our government's strategic investment of $750 million will not only support our world-class post-secondary system and workforce, but it will also function as a catalyst to drive Ontario's economy forward for years to come. This critical investment will get students into rewarding careers that address the province's current and future labour market needs, such as AI, vehicle manufacturing, medicine, and so much more. Speaker, we know that we need doctors, we need engineers, and we need skilled manufacturers. And this investment will fund up to 20,500 new seats in those programs in Ontario every single year. This is on top of the $100 million invested in 23-24 to support STEM programs at our publicly assisted colleges and universities. Our government will do whatever it takes to protect Ontario's future, and that work is happening right now in Ontario's colleges and universities across the province as they build the workforce of tomorrow. We will continue to work closely with our post-secondary institutions to ensure that students receive the high-caliber education and training they need to drive our critical industries and economy forward.
I recognize the member from Thornhill on a point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and a very happy point of order it is. Happy birthday to Paige Sarah Mal.
Happy birthday, Paige Sarah. I beg to inform the House that I have today laid upon the table a request by the member for Kingston and the Islands, Ted Hsu, to Catherine Motherwell, Integrity Commissioner, for an opinion pursuant to Section 30 of the Members' Integrity Act 1994 on whether the member for Etobicoke North, Doug Ford, the member for Barrie Innisfil, Andrea Kanjan, the member for Durham, Todd McCarthy, and the member for King Vaughan, Stephen Lecce, have contravened the Act or Ontario Parliamentary Convention. This House stands in recess until 3 p.m.